So I'm here again after watching the Chancellor's Getting It Done budget. I have to confess, I rather like our new Chancellor. I can offer no apologies here for focusing on the tax aspects, because that's what I find fascinating. Very sad, but very true. I apologise if it looks like I'm looking at notes. I am. It was an awful lot to try and remember. So here goes. So we have coronavirus emergency measures. Previously announced a cut in interest rates from 0.75% to 0.25%. Promises of NHS funding, whatever it takes. For those testing positive or advised to self-isolate by NHS 111, SSP will be payable from day one instead of the usual day 4. If you are self-employed, you will have access to ESA from day 1 instead of day 8. And there will be a temporary removal of the income floor for universal credit. There will also be a £500 million hardship fund given to local authorities. For employers, you will be able to do a full SSP reclaim for those 14 days. Only for businesses with under 250 employees, though. And HMRC are to scale up their time to pay arrangement. In my experience, it completely depends on who you get at the end of the phone. So sometimes if you find that you get through and somebody's not being particularly helpful, the advice generally is to phone back, because the next person you get may well be. There is a temporary business interruption lending for small and medium-sized businesses, which is going to be 80% government guaranteed. 100% business rate discount for 1 year for properties with a rateable value of less than 51,000 for leisure, retail and hospitality businesses. And for those that are already qualifying for small business rates relief, there will be a £3,000 cash grant. So other measures non-coronavirus related, they have abolished VAT on digital reading material at last, which is great news for me because I'm an avid Kindle reader. An increase in the NI threshold to £9,500, which is the first step, obviously, towards aligning it with the personal allowance for income tax. They're abolishing the tampon tax, typical with me just being about to turn 50. However, they are freezing alcohol duties, which I'm a little bit more interested in. They're also freezing fuel duty for another year, but they're going to abolish some of the tax incentives for the use of red diesel, but only for certain sectors. There's going to be a business rates discount for pubs of 5,000 rather than 1,000 for 1 year. Probably the biggest news, and I actually had an email ping through on it whilst I was watching the budget, is that in Entrepreneurs Relief, the 10% CGT rate on the sale of businesses is not going to be abolished, as I suspected, but the lifetime limit is going to be reduced to £1 million. Lifetime limit. And that is from today. So any disposal on today or after today will have the new reduced limit. I've just had a quick look also at the budget impact notes, and there are anti-avoidance provisions in that for people who have tried to create a disposal to park their lifetime limit at 10 million, or to use an election that you can to crystallise the capital gain and entrepreneurs relief on a previous disposal that may have got something like share for share exchange treatment. So you're going to have a good look at that detail. That is going to pay for an increase in R&D expenditure credit is going from 12 to 13%. And as suspected, the structures and building allowance, capital allowances, are going to increase from 2% per annum to 3% per annum. Again, that measure takes place from today. There will also be an increase in employment allowance. That's going up from 3,000 to 4,000. And increase in the threshold for the tapered annual allowance. And that's each threshold is actually going up by 90,000. So now it will generally only affect people with income over £200,000. However, at the moment, the maximum tapered allowance is 10,000. That will be reducing, I'm afraid, to 4,000 only, which is in line with the money purchase annual allowance. And that will hit when your income is over £300,000 a year. So the other bits in the budget were spend, spend, spend. I've never seen anything like that since I mailed a Marcos in a shoe shop. I could list what they're spending on, things like infrastructure, schools, social care, but I could go on forever. But again, this spend all has to be paid for. One of the measures have included the 2% stamp duty land tax surcharge for non-UK residents. Again, I've gone on to look at the tax impact note for that, and oddly enough, there isn't one. So whether they're going to put that up for consultation, my biggest question on that would be, so if a non-UK resident buys a property personally, they would face the 2% surcharge. If they form a UK limited company and the UK limited company is resident, would they still face it? Will there be a look-through for UK registered companies? Remains to be seen until we get a tax impact note. The CT rate is to remain at 19%. It's not going to be cut as previously announced to 17% this April. And yet again, there's going to be a big clampdown in tax avoidance, which is to be expected. That's pretty much in every budget now. So that's the main sum up of the budget. What do we know that was already coming in? The 30-day CGT, capital gains tax return and payment window, is coming in from 5th of April 2020. Principal private residence, the final period in which you're deemed to occupy as your private residence is being reduced from 18 months to 9 months. And the very valuable lettings relief, which could exempt an additional £40,000 of capital gain, is being removed unless you occupied at the same time as the tenant. Making Tax Digital for VAT is with us, and I'm pleased to say it didn't cause quite as many headaches as we thought it was going to. The extension of the IR35 rules to the private sector is coming in from the 6th of April also. That again, we are finding that most of the larger engagers of contractors are playing it safe and deeming all of their contractors to be within IR35. I have this week had 2 contractors challenge that treatment, and the engager has backed down. HMRC will also have priority for certain tax debts going forward in insolvency, such as VAT and PAYE. Employers' NI on termination payments over £30,000 is coming in from the 6th of April. And there is an ability for NHS doctors facing a large annual allowance charge on their pensions to get the scheme to pay that charge and for that to be compensated later on. Mark Thompson here is actually our healthcare specialist, so if you've got any queries on that, please do feel free to contact him. You know, we always say this, but the devil really is in the detail. I have had a quick look at most of the detail, but I'm sure more will be forthcoming and we will keep you updated on the way. Tina will, of course, be producing and circulating the summary today, and we will also be publishing our budget booklets both online and by post for those who don't want to. all that remains to say is we look forward to seeing you in the autumn when the autumn budget, and hopefully that will be in person. So thank you very much for listening. Goodbye.